Is Netanyahu the elephant in the room? Does Israel become the biggest sticking point in a possible peace deal between US and Iran? To discuss this in greater detail, I'm now being joined by a stellar panel. I'm being joined from Tel Aviv by Dr. Maher Javed Anfar. He's a lecturer of Iranian politics at Reichman University in Israel and co-author of The Nuclear Sphinx of Tehran. Also joining us from Wicklow Island is Scott Lucas, professor of international politics at Clinton Institute in University College Dublin. Professor Lucas, Dr. Javed Anfar, pleasure speaking with you always. Thanks so much for making time. Let me start with Doctor here first. Dr. Javed Anfar, will Israel let this peace deal be materialized?
I think as long as Israel's hands are tied with regards to Lebanon, Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to have a very difficult time with this deal. And that's before we even know what the final outcome of the negotiations between Iran and the United States will be. For that, we have to wait 60 days, at least. But for now, there is great concern in the state of Israel that President Trump has negotiated over Israel's head with the Iranians over Lebanon, regards to Lebanon, and that Hezbollah might use this opportunity to feel that it has immunity to attack Israel, whereas Israel may not enjoy the same rights in terms of responding against Hezbollah attacks, because then Iran could threaten to leave the nuclear deal, to leave the current deal, and that could bring President Trump to bear tremendous pressure on the state of Israel. That is a great concern for any Israeli prime minister, but not only Netanyahu. At the same time, in Israel, there's a lot of criticism of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and justifiably so, in that over the years, he has eroded Israel's standing and political and diplomatic leverage in the outside world, and inside the United States especially, to the point that now that Israel has a gripe against the US, there is very little it can do about it. Israel cannot turn to the Democrats because Mr. Netanyahu, unfortunately, did a stellar job of pushing them away. And Israel cannot turn to the Europeans because our relations with the Europeans have also deteriorated. So there is genuine concern in Israel, but there are people within Israel, namely Prime Minister Netanyahu's government, who is responsible for the predicament that we find ourselves in.
Understood. Professor Lucas, let me come over to you. There is concern that Israel was not in that negotiating table. Does that only allude to the fact that Donald Trump needed to make this deal and he knew that Israel will get in the way?
It meant that Trump, despite a lot of what you hear about Netanyahu controls Trump or Trump controls Netanyahu, that Trump's priority was on getting a deal with Iran because of domestic pressure in the United States, because of pressure from the Gulf states, and that he was going to defy Israel over that. Conversely, I think what we're seeing emerge today is that even though details of this first stage, and it's only a first stage deal, are very vague. For example, the Trump camp have not said anything about Lebanon, whereas Iran says there's a ceasefire on all fronts. I think it shows that the Netanyahu government is going to defy the Trump administration, at least to the extent of continuing attacks in southern Lebanon and establishing what in effect is a de facto zone of occupation, at least probably 10 kilometers inside Lebanon. In other words, we have two separate wars here. We have the U.S. and Israel war on Iran, but we have an Israel war in Lebanon, which is likely to continue at least at some level. Now, I think there is a red line here. I'll just highlight this and have my friend Dr. Javed Anfar respond to this. I think the red line here is Israel attacking Beirut. Twice in the past 8 days, Israel has attacked Beirut. On the first occasion, just over a week ago, Iran fired 30 missiles into Iran. Yesterday, Israel again attacked Beirut, saying they were hitting a Hezbollah command center. Trump was furious with Netanyahu over this, but said he would get Israel not to retaliate. We're in a strange position now where if Israel attacks Beirut a third time, both Tehran and the Trump camp may be united against the Israelis and put pressure on them to stop.
Dr. Javed Anfar, I'll come over to you for your comments. If Israel doesn't stop in Lebanon against Hezbollah, they keep going after Beirut. And this is after a ceasefire has been announced thrice. Is that what's going to break this deal apart?
In reference to Professor Lucas's excellent question, there is a neighborhood in Lebanon, in Beirut, called the Dahia. And that is the soft underbelly of Hezbollah. The question here is why Israel has attacked the Dahia. It's because Hezbollah, President Trump on the 5th of June declared a ceasefire. And it was Hezbollah who didn't accept it. And they're the ones who've been attacking. And as part of Israel's strategy to deter Hezbollah, you always go for the enemy's weak points. Everybody does that. Israel has been attacking Dahia. It will be of tremendous concern to any Israeli leader if Israel can no longer attack Dahia, which is the headquarters and a center of support for Hezbollah. At the same time, we have to wait and see how the Iranians behave. Will they restrain the Israelis? Will they restrain the Hezbollah? Excuse me. But here we have a serious problem in Israel. Again, it goes back to my original point. We don't have much leverage. Prime Minister Netanyahu has eroded our diplomatic leverage so badly, not only in Europe, but amongst our friends in the US. Of course, he's the one who pushed the Democrats away with his speech in 2015 at the Congress against the wishes of President Obama, 2 weeks before Mr. Netanyahu's election. I have to tell your viewers and Professor Lucas something that worries me even more. We are on the verge of another election in Israel in October. Prime Minister Netanyahu knows that if he loses, he's going to go to jail. There's a very strong chance that he's going to go to jail. And what concerns me and a lot of other Israelis is that he will resort to desperate measures, including an open and brazen public confrontation against President Trump. And he will go to places that no other world leader has gone before in terms of confronting President Trump because Netanyahu feels desperate. And that could also mean, yes, attacking Dahia again, even though, yes, there would be legitimate concerns. He may try to leverage that for his own election. This is what worries me. And this is going to lead to our deterioration abroad of our leverage. And we need that leverage because we have enemies who have never wanted peace. I will end with that point that Israel withdrew from occupied Lebanese territory in May 2000. And since then, Hezbollah, instead of building Lebanon, has used that opportunity of 26 years to attack Israel and to pull Lebanon backwards with corruption, with intimidation of Lebanese and attacks against the state.
I hear you, Doctor. Let me go over to Professor Lucas. For Israel, there is merit in going after Dahia or going after the underbelly of Hezbollah based in Dahia, because for them it's a matter of existence. But at the same time, for Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's political existence as well. And that is definitely going to be as big a thorn that is required to break this deal apart. Professor Lucas, do you find that justified in not heeding to the ceasefire which has been announced again and again?
I mean, it's for others to talk about justification. I mean, you've heard an excellent analysis by Dr. Javan in terms of the way that many Israelis perceive Hezbollah. The flip side to that, even before we get to Beirut, is, for example, on Sunday, Hezbollah did launch 3 drones onto northern Israel. Israel then came back with this very powerful symbolic as well as, damaging attack on Dahia, which hit. So there's a question here: is Israel responding to Hezbollah proportionally? And that's not to minimize Hezbollah's attacks, but Israel has caused far more damage in Lebanon over these past 3.5 months, more than almost 3,800 Lebanese killed. But I think beyond that, and Dr. Javan puts this very important point on the political front, it is really a question as to whether the Netanyahu government, including the prime minister, are willing to split the relationship with the Trump administration, which has been a bedrock of Israel's position for decades. And there's a flutter this morning that has just come out. There's an Israeli source, which probably means an official in Netanyahu's office, who is blaming Donald Trump's envoys his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the real estate developer, Steve Witkoff, for driving a wedge between Netanyahu and Trump. I think that does two things. One is it means that Netanyahu's office is still holding off from blaming Trump directly for the position they're in. But secondly, it's a warning shot to the Trump folks, which is, we're going to start criticizing you. We're going to start coming out and saying that you're the problem here as well as Iran.
Professor Lucas, you've raised pertinent points, but at the same time, the bigger question that's also emerging here is that for Netanyahu, it's important that the war continues for his political ambitions. For Trump, it's important that this war ends because it holds the potential to shake his political existence. And this is when it's US and Israel, the closest of ties, ironclad. And this war is starting to show fractures in that. When you are having calls laden with expletives, it does raise questions. Thank you so much to both my guests, Dr. Mir Javed Anfar and Professor Scott Lucas. Pleasure speaking with both gentlemen for bringing in points and helping our audiences understand both perspectives well.
Thank you.